Welcome to our Meet the Candidates interview series. We now have Chris Cox running for the seat in downtown Anchorage. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, thank you.
I'm gonna get right to it. What makes you the most qualified candidate for this position?
Well, I've been a business owner in Anchorage for 25 years. I've owned the Carousel Lounge, I've owned Klondike Mike's, the Anchor Arms Hotel, Northern Stage Company, Carousel Cars, and many other businesses all simultaneously. I had a payroll of 47 people. I know what it's like to follow a budget, to stop spending whenever you run out of money, and to make more out of less, and to run something efficiently. On top of that, I'm the only conservative Republican running.
So if voters agree with you and choose you, what's the first issue you want to address or first action you want to take as an assembly member?
Well, the first action is definitely crime. We've got a real problem in downtown Anchorage with crime. You have a 2.5 times greater chance of being murdered in downtown Anchorage than you do in Chicago. And I think the very first thing that requires our attention is the crime downtown. Nothing's getting done right now, and that definitely is something that has to stop. We have to return Anchorage to a law and order town, and that is number one.
Okay, I'm going to get back to public safety in just a minute. You
Okay.
mentioned budgets. I would like to know your thoughts on the budget the Assembly just passed.
I don't think the Assembly does a very good job when it comes to budgets. I think that they spend money they don't have. I think that they don't prioritize the budget. I don't think it's prioritized right now. And I think most certainly that they're so worried about bringing revenue in, they're not worried about the revenue that's going out. And that is the most important, is the money that's going out. We're spending money we don't have, and tough times require tough choices. And it's time to say, enough, stop. Stop spending, stop asking the taxpayers for more and more money, stop looking for ways to get more and more money only so they can spend it. It's time to make tough choices.
Do you see areas immediately where you can see cuts could be made?
Well, do I see immediately? Without reviewing the budget in detail, I wouldn't want to go into that, and nobody should. Nobody should make comments about where they would start making these broad strokes cuts until they've actually got the job and had a chance to really review it and see the details that we, the general public, don't see. But, you know, off the top of my head, we're being told police or snowplows, which is completely wrong. I mean, I love flowers, but let's get rid of the flowers. If we have to have police or flowers, let's get the police. So there's a lot of things in there, and until I've really had a chance to study it, I don't think I would want to comment on that specifically, only cutting out the frivolousness.
Would you support a sales tax as a way to diversify our tax base and possibly take some of the burden off of property owners?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Again, whenever I was in business, I always tell people that you make money two ways. You make money with the money that comes in, the profit, and then the revenue, and then you make money with the money that goes out, your bills, etc. And to make more money, you can increase your customer base. You can also cut your spending. And that's what we need to bring to the Assembly. We need to say, hey, look, we don't have a revenue problem. We have a lot of money that comes in. The problem is the spending. That's the issue. So I do not support a tax. All that does is take the burden from one set of person and put it on another. But it's the same person. So instead of paying out of your left pocket, you're paying out of your right. So no, I do not support that at all. And once that door gets opened, it's never going to close. It's going to get opened wider and wider and wider. And all that does is give more and more money. Next year it'll be, oh, we need more money. So let's tax a little bit more. Let's raise it a little bit more and more and more.
What would you say to property owners who are like, well, you know, these people rent, they're not paying the taxes?
Well, I've been a landlord. That was the backbone of one of my businesses for years, and I had hundreds of units. So I had tenants, and I paid a lot of property taxes, and that's part of doing business. That is the cost of doing business, which is drastically different than the homeowner out there. You know, a guy that owns a 4-plex or a 32-plex, he's got that as a built-in cost of business, the property taxes there. But to the John Q. homeowner, that's the real problem. And that guy's being taxed out of oblivion. So we can't raise his taxes. And at the same token, I know a lot of people are saying, well, don't raise his taxes, so how about a sales tax? And again, it goes back to cutting. There's plenty of money coming in right now. It's a matter of getting rid of the frivolous spending. We spend astronomical amounts of money in ridiculous places.
Moving on to homelessness, what grade would you give the Anchorage Muni for how it's dealing with the problem right now?
I'd give them an F.
And why is that?
What have they done? The homeless problem hasn't gotten any better. You get people that they want to feel warm and fuzzy, so they write a check and they build a building and they stick some 10 or 20 people in it, and they feel really good about what they did about curbing homelessness. dealing in low-income housing for 25 years, I was at the core of the problem. I took people off the streets. I took people out of the shelter, people coming out of prison, starting their lives over with nothing. And I worked with them, helping them getting on their feet. Until we go to the core problem of homelessness, we're never going to solve it. All we're doing is putting a Band-Aid on it right now. And they built that building downtown at the cost of $367,000 per unit. So that's certainly not the answer there. We can't go and spend $367,000 per homeless person in the city. So it's an absolute F. And all they're doing is, I guess, getting more votes because it's not working. It's absolutely not working. And it shifts, all it does is bring the burden here and shift it over here. That's all it does.
So you are not a fan of the Housing First model, but your district is one that's heavily affected by the homeless problem.
Absolutely.
What do you think could be done?
Well, there's a number of things that can be done. There's short term and there's long term. In the short term, it's a sad situation. But we have to get to the core of the problem. We have to figure out why are the people homeless. There's a lot of people that are mentally challenged. That, I mean, that's probably 20%, 30% of the homelessness. There's certainly not compassionate, but there are people that simply, that's the way they are. They don't want to work. They don't want to enter into our society, as we call it. They don't want to enter into get a job and get a house and all that. They're not happy with where they're at, but also they don't want to play by the rules that we've set up. And we have to get to the core of the problem in order to solve the homelessness. And throwing money at it is not the problem. And you talked about the taxpayers the other day, or a moment ago, and you've got people that are going to work every day and trying to pay their property taxes and their mortgage payment, and then by the same token, we're going to give the other folks a free house that don't want to work. And so, of course, in the interest of fairness, that's certainly not fair. So that's not the solution at all.
Okay, going back to public safety, the mayor wants to add 56 more police officers in this next fiscal year. He's definitely prioritizing growing the force in tough budget times. Do you think there are other ways the Muni can improve public safety concerns in addition to or other than adding more officers?
Well, I grew up in the household of a police officer. My dad is a retired Anchorage police officer. So I have been hearing about Anchorage police officers my entire life. And I think that adding more police officers is definitely 50% of the solution. I don't think he'll ever do it. I think that he's grandstanding, but I don't think he'll ever do it. I think adding police officers is 50% of the solution. However, that's not going to get us there. That's only part of the problem. We have to do two other things. And number one, we have to remove the restrictions that prohibit the police officers from doing their jobs, from going out and making that arrest and throwing the person in jail. And then we need tougher sentences, tougher penalties. Right now, somebody gets arrested, and a lot of times the police don't even show up because why are they going to show up and fill out all the paperwork, do the report and everything, only so this person can get processed in and processed out and nothing happens to them. In some cases, I'm for mandatory minimums, and in other cases, we need to make sure that we have much tougher penalties. So if you break the law in Anchorage, Alaska, you're going to jail. There's no way around it. There's a consequence, and if you break that if you break the law, that consequence will be you're in jail, and then you'll think twice about doing it again.
So you're referring to Senate Bill 91, at least a little bit. I'm getting.
Well, I wasn't referring to that directly. That is certainly one. That's a state issue, and that's one of the issues. I am not for Senate Bill 91. I think it cripples us.
How do you get around that as a local government body?
Well, it's very difficult at the municipal level to tell the state what to do. The state doesn't like that. However, if enough cities put pressure on the state and enough cities say, hey, look, we don't like this, and we all come together and unite, I think that's the only way it can be done. Maybe the squeaky wheel will get some grease. But if enough of the key people in the governments say this isn't working, let's start over, then I think that's the only way that we can really do something. Or maybe enact a law that says, what can we do here in Anchorage? So if they want to do that, that's great. We'll let all the prisoners go free unless you're in Anchorage, and then you don't get to. So I would have to have to put some thought into that, of how we can creatively get around that.
The mayor's also said he will not allow Anchorage police officers to round up refugees for immigration services, even under the threat of losing federal funds. Do you agree or disagree with his position?
Absolutely, I disagree with that. I absolutely disagree with that. Why? For what reason? We're another sanctuary city. First of all, on the simplest level, now we're missing out on money. We're going to continue to tax people's property taxes or have an income tax because we don't want to get the federal money. Federal money's there. All we have to do is abide by the law. Number two, these are illegal immigrants. They're not supposed to be here. And we need to round them up and send them back, and they can come in the proper and legal way and go to the back of the line like everybody else, like my ancestors did, your ancestors did, and come here, well, I'm assuming your ancestors, and come here the legal way. It's absolutely, I could not be more against that.
Do you think Anchorage should find a way to allow Uber and Lyft networking transportation companies to operate here in Anchorage?
Excuse me. Absolutely. Absolutely, I do. They're a business just like any other, and they have the right to make or break. Right now, there's a monopoly. The taxi cabs have a complete monopoly on the system. And of course, they don't want any more competition to come in. They're going to cite 1,000 different reasons, but the bottom line is they don't want it, is the competition. But Uber is a great service. I used it. I was at the inauguration in Washington, D.C. Uber was fantastic. We used it. Now, there's been some issues, and of course, you get one thing and it blows up on the national media, but overall, the success rate of Uber is fantastic, and we need to open doors to other areas of commerce. I'm sure 100 years ago, the buggy whip industry had the same type of conversation about these newfangled cars and all the reasons we shouldn't let them on the roads, but eventually, that's the future, and that's how the future is headed.
Okay, last question for you. What is one promise you would like to make to voters now that you will fulfill if elected?
Well, I will stop the ridiculous, out of control, frivolous spending. I will prioritize the important things that need to be met and our obligations that need to be met, and I will cut all of the other ones to keep your tax burdens down. And I will do everything I can to fight for that and to make sure that the worker, the business owner doesn't have any more tax burden on them. And if oil goes back up and things change down the road, we can address that, all those programs down the road. But right now, I'll make tough choices.
Okay, Chris Cox running for the open seat in downtown Anchorage. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
Best of luck.